Neera and I are long-time, I don't say old friends anymore, I say long-time friends. And yesterday during Father's Day, I was bragging to my wife that I have had 3 of the hottest tickets to things in DC and around America in the last year. We got tickets to go be with President Biden and Mr. Modi for the state dinner, which went beautifully. Second, we got Taylor Swift concert tickets, which was...
You're really building this up here, my friend.
And then thirdly, to be at this dinner tonight, which is a great, great tribute to U.S. India relations. Neera, you have had so many prestigious titles, president of a great think tank here in town. You're the director of one of the president's most important policy councils. You have a JD degree from Yale University, all these great accomplishments, and you're doing one of the most important jobs in Washington right now on the Domestic Policy Council. We heard from John Feiner and we hear from the senators about strategic convergence all the time. And we tend to think about it in terms of defense and technology, but it's also so true that it goes straight to many of the issues that you're working on. People skills, technology companies in America. Most of our technology, many of our top-notch technology companies in the United States are being run by Indian Americans, many members of Congress. So tell us, Neera, what is it that is so important about this relationship in politics and business, and how do we keep growing this and improving this in the future?
That's a great question. Thank you so much, Ambassador Roemer. It is great to be with you, and I have learned a lot from you over the years about the U.S. India relationship, so I really appreciate being here, and I also just want to say thank you to my good friend Mukesh. I was at a dinner a few years ago, which was quite small, a little bit smaller than this one, so it really is a testament to the relationship, Mukesh's leadership, obviously, and everyone engaged here about the maturity of the relationship. And I guess I would say a few things. First of all, this is my 3rd White House. I started my career in the Clinton White House. And in the Clinton White House, there were, I think a handful of Indian Americans in the entire executive office of the president. And today, I feel very fortunate to be among so many leaders. There's a handful of assistants to the president who are Indian Americans. And as you said, we have Indian Americans as leaders of companies, Indian Americans in Congress. We have a record number. We're at 5 members of Congress, and perhaps a few more after November. And I will say, not to age myself, but when I was going into politics, a few decades back, I didn't see many role models because I think as first generation, we tend to, my parents were always asking me why I didn't become a lawyer, or partner, or doctor, or a business leader. But I think what's a real tribute to the U.S.-India relationship, and to build a little bit on John's remarks, I think so much of the values that the senator spoke to, the values that we share between India and the United States, the values of entrepreneurialism, the values of really a focus on education and opportunity, the values of innovation, and I really think it is this convergence, which is a convergence of values, which have allowed so many Indians to want to come to the United States, to be the leaders of companies here. You have so many stories of people who've come to get an education here and stay and innovate and lead. And I really do think, I was thinking about this recently, Center for American Progress hosted Vice President Biden about a decade ago before he was going to India, and he did a speech with us before his trip. And he really focused in on this specific issue, which is, you think about India and you think about the, children who are going to school to think through those innovations in the future. And just that spirit of connection that brings a lot of those dreamers to come to the United States, get an education here to lead in creating innovations, not just for the United States, but for the world. And so I very much see these values, the kind of connection of values driving that experience. And, just when you think about the IIT model of India and just the amazing number of business leaders that I just know many from the IIT in India who've created companies here, who are creating innovations here. That's an education model really not just for India, but for innovation in the world. And so I just think that just creates that dynamic that has been helpful, obviously, to Indian Americans in America, but just remember what an enrichment it has been for America itself.
So one of the great things that India has going for it, especially in relation to China, is the demographic dividend. About 65% of the Indian population is under 35. In the United States, we see President Biden investing in infrastructure for competitiveness, for economic growth, the people skills that need to drive the technology, doing some wonderful things in those areas. But the skilling part of this, Neera, how do we bring the technology and the people and the skilling, the education together, whether that's community colleges, whether that's welding and pointing, whether that's our elite college education? I know you're thinking a lot about this. This is one of the great areas of convergence between the United States and India, too.
Yeah, so of course the president has an Invest in America agenda that is really focused on manufacturing, renewable energy, but really I'd say how we build a non-college career pathway into good middle-class jobs, which we are very proud of. But I also think it's critical to remember that we need innovations in these spaces. So we have to think of the entire terrain, which is education, higher education, career-connected learning, non-college pathways. The president will say, I am not here to break news about announcements we will make, because then I too would get fired, like John Feiner could get fired if he talked about Jake Sullivan's announcements. But I'm not here to announce the president will be making announcements tomorrow related to employment pathways for people in the United States. And I think one of the principles animating that the announcements tomorrow is the fact that we have a very odd situation in the United States where we attract people from all over the world to come to our phenomenal higher education system. And then in many ways, we do everything we can in a sort of upside down crazy policy to send them back. And that really makes no sense for innovation, for growth, for our dynamism, and the president will be taking some steps on that topic tomorrow. And I feel like...
You're teasing us, Neera. Do you want to say anything more?
No. I feel like if I say more, John will tell the comms team, and I'll get in so much trouble. But I will say, what I can say is really the value of that is to say, in America, we should be proud of the fact that we attract global talent. This is part of the unique value proposition of America, and that we should then use that talent for innovation into the future, to build businesses, to create economic growth, instead of sending people, in essence, repudiating that skill, that innovation, that hunger to be part of our economic growth.
So that's a great point, Neera. Politics, to me, is all about storytelling. It's all about communicating with people a story, not a figure, not a spending detail, a story that connects to their gut. And Neera was just talking about that. I think it was Cal and Duke that did a study 10 years ago that showed that 23% of technology jobs in America are created by immigrants coming from India and other places in Asia. How do we better tell this story about people coming here legally and coming here to build jobs, create value, do more to achieve the American dream for the middle class? What's your best shot at that, Neera?
So I guess I'll try to, how do I put this? I will say, I think we live in a time where there's just a lot of energy or focus on lose-lose propositions, or really win-lose propositions, or my gain is at your expense, or your gain is at my expense. And I think what we have to do is be clearer about how systems of reform can mean economic growth for everyone. And that we really have to push against the kind of zero-sum game that we often see in politics and policy. So that's why I do think it's important to tell the story of how we create economic growth for large numbers of people when we have rational immigration policies, or we have strong investments that go between countries. Because I do think for a variety of reasons, change is scary. People become anxious. It's easy to be fearful. But the antidote to fear is, a vision, facts. I do think facts matter. I still believe facts matter.
I agree.
But I think it is explaining why my success is also your success, or your success is also my success. When we have people who come, they aren't replacing someone, they are adding. And I think this is why the story of innovation and it's such an American, and I say that consciously, American story, that we have a country where the greatest, innovators in the world want to come, build businesses, and expand opportunity. And they build businesses that employ Americans and people around the world. But we don't want to be we lose so much as a country. We lose as a country, and and other countries lose as well, if we become a place where we, we turn those future AI specialists or innovators away, because then we become not just a smaller country or someone whose values are different, but we will be a less rich country, a less innovative country, a less of an economic engine for the rest of the world. This has been a win-win-win, the cycle of innovation, and we just have to remind people over and over again, even when they have many voices telling them to fear others, to really that is a part of our success.
So last question. We've heard about, from John, we heard about strategic convergence and strategic autonomy, and we've learned about, the values that we all share between our two great countries. And you bring up a great strategic trust here, Neera, how we are trusting each other more and more between these two great countries that have elections all the time. How do you build this trust into more agreements, whether it's Jake over there working on technology, whether it's our Secretary of Defense working on trade issues, strengthening issues on the defense side, or whether it's in your domestic policy council?
I guess I'll amplify something John said, which is, I really think that it's the people in this room. And I remember 20, 30 years ago, I would go to India, and you talk to basically elites who would kind of share the, long-held view of suspicion of the U.S. government, and with a fair amount of cynicism about the U.S. But then you'd meet innovators, business leaders, people, the diaspora, people who'd returned from the diaspora, who really saw the United States in a very different light. And I really do believe the diaspora has played a huge role in building this relationship to where it is today. Yes, please applaud.
Well said.
Business leaders that have gone back and forth have played a huge role. Even in times where which is not today, in past moments where there have been really fraught tensions even between the United States and India, or suspicion or concern, it's the people of really both countries. But many Indians I know have family relatives in the United States that have helped shape the vision that they have of the U.S. And that's why I think, how do we solve our problems? How do we take this relationship even farther? Of course, it's it's President Biden's leadership, it's India's leadership, but fundamentally also, it is the leadership of people in this room and, the Indian Americans here, the sense of pride that I know Indians have of their congressional leaders, their White House staff. There's just a deep connection to how India perceives the U.S. through how the U.S. treats Indians. And I think that is fundamentally important as we make progress forward.
Neera Tanden, please join me in thanking her for a great presentation. Thank you, Neera.